Well, welcome back to our next session of the AIPH International Green City Conference. And it's great to see you all here. I hope you've enjoyed the conference so far. Now we're going to move on to our next presentation. And we have three. And after that, we're going to bring together our three speakers together for a joint Q&A session together. So please continue to put your questions on the stage chat line. And then once we have them all together, we'll try and go through those questions. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome our next speaker. Our next speaker is Maria Vassilakou. Maria served as the Vice Mayor of Vienna, responsible for urban planning, traffic and transport, climate protection, energy and public participation from November 2010 to July 2019. She is an experienced urban leader devoted to open, inclusive and green cities with a passion for urban transformation processes leading to sustainable change. She envisages cities as open, green, affordable, family-friendly and diverse places for life. And in her 9 years serving as Deputy Mayor, she was responsible for a vast transformation agenda comprising numerous innovative projects, contributing substantially to Vienna's NR1 position in all major international livability rankings within the last decade. Maria has founded Vienna Solutions and now works worldwide as a strategist and global advisor on urban transformation and transition management. I'm delighted that we can welcome Maria to speak about planning and managing green transitions, and I look forward to her presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to speak at the Green City Conference today. I will be presenting Vienna, my city, and certainly one of the most beautiful and green cities in the world. Now, Vienna has managed the green transition excellently in the last decades, and there is a lot to share. So, if you haven't been to Vienna yet, or if you would like to travel there sometime, well, pack your suitcases, at least virtually for the time being, and follow me to Vienna to take a deep dive and see how things are getting done there. Now, you may have heard that Vienna is regularly ranked as the world's #1 in livability, example given according to Mercer for 10 years in a row now, or according to The Economist livability ranking in the last 3 years in a row. So what I'm regularly asked is, how does a city manage to become the world's #1, and how does it manage to stay the world's #1 for so long? Now, Vienna is a rapidly growing city. It grows by approximately 25,000 people per year, which is, of course, a huge opportunity for the city. I always say 25,000 people are 25,000 new opportunities for our city, but it is also a challenge because it means having to build new urban quarters for 25,000 people each and every year. Now, Vienna has managed this in an excellent way, and we will be looking into it in a second in terms of what this means for making a city even greener as it is already. Now, before we start talking about anything else, we should look deeper into one very crucial question. And this is, what is actually life quality? What is livability? Everybody talks about it, but what is it in real life? Well, I always say a livable city is a city where we all live because we want to and not because we have to. And it is a city that's good for children. Yes, this is really my central credo. A city that's good for children is good for us all. It's good for every generation. Why is that so, you may ask? Well, what is it that we long for our children? We want them to grow up in a healthy and safe environment. We want them to have access to nature. We want them to be able to move freely and play with water perhaps. And all these qualities are things that we long for ourselves as well. So this may be the central reason why young couples, as soon as they know that the first child is arriving, most of the time say, well, now we will have to leave the city behind and move to the suburbs and buy a little cottage so our children can have a happy childhood. But once they do so, this is what it may do with their lives and what it may do with cities. And this is something we know from all over in the world. Suburbanization and cities growing as endless carpets of cottages for kilometers and kilometers. And what this also means in everyday life is millions of people spending their lives in traffic jams, trying to get to work, trying to bring the kids to school, and so on and so forth. Now, I believe that this is not the way we should plan a livable city. But planning a livable city clearly needs robust strategies, it needs funding, and it needs collaborative design between different tiers of government. Now, Vienna consists of 23 boroughs. The municipality in its entirety is responsible for the largest parts of funding, and it is responsible for steering strategy design. But decision power when it comes to greening and placemaking lies 100% by the boroughs. So greening a city in Vienna, pretty much as anywhere else in the world, is much more a matter of collaboration, shared visions and strategies, and a culture of working together closely over longer periods of time. Now, the result is a really very green city. 53% of the entire space of Vienna consists of green spaces. We have agricultural production within our borders. Just to give you an example, 3 million of excellent white wine are produced within Vienna's borders each and every year. There are several protected areas, most notably the Vienna Forest and the National Park Danube Wetlands, which is protected for some decades now. In fact, the city is about to create new forests at its borders, but it also has decided to become even greener and to use new urban quarters as an opportunity to create additional green spaces. I would like to start by presenting you perhaps Vienna's most smart green project, and this has been the creation of the Danube Island, which was created in the 70s to protect the city from floods. So it is a flood protection project that at the same time created a city beach at a length of 42 kilometers, supported the positioning of Vienna's second city center, enabled the creation of a hydroelectric power plant, and hosts, until today, an afloat school, among other public uses. As you can see, it is a beloved green space used by the Viennese, especially in hot summer days. But what is the most interesting case in Vienna is the way the city transforms brownfields into new urban quarters, using them at the same time as an opportunity to create additional green spaces. Now, Vienna is one of the most affordable cities in the world when it comes to social housing. 62% of all Viennese live in public or subsidized units, paying thus extremely affordable rents. And subsidized housing stands at the heart of the creation of new urban quarters. New urban quarters are always created with vast green spaces in the middle and high density at the edges, with high-level public transport access and traffic calming at the interior of the new urban quarter. This means the focus lies on cycling and walking, an optimum environment for child play, and accessibility for everybody living in the nearby vicinity, and not only to the people that live within a specific urban quarter. A very good example for this is Seestadt Aspern, a new urban quarter for thousands of people to live and work there. And here you can see how the envisaged quality was maintained throughout the construction process and the results in real life. At the backdrop, we have affordable housing and a wonderful lake that is used by people living there and by the entire vicinity, giving a feeling like holiday at home. Now we move on to the example of the new railway station of Vienna, which is not just a railway station, it is an entire new urban quarter. And yet again, you can see the principles of design with vast green spaces in the middle and high density at the edges, affordable housing, and how this was actually translated throughout the construction process, and what it looks like yet again in real life with young families enjoying life, living directly at a 7-hectare new park, allowing for diverse uses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Throughout the last decades, subsidized housing has placed an emphasis on balconies, also as a means of vertical greening. But what we do regularly nowadays is to allow for ample space for community uses. Here's an example of urban farming and community gardening within a new urban quarter. As Vienna is in the privileged position of disposing of several potential urban development zones, and you can see several of them are downtown, but also suburban, this means that we have the potential of creating additional green spaces, but what is even more important, we have the potential of connecting them to each other, thus creating a network of green and open spaces connected via green boulevards. And this is what I believe lies at the heart of Vienna's greening philosophy. It's about creating additional new open and green spaces, aiming at the creation of a green network that can be accessed by any Viennese at any spot within 300 meters. It's not just about planting trees. It's about thinking in networks and connecting dots. And of course, it's also about rethinking the streets. Here's just another example of what I mean when I speak of creating new open and green spaces. This is a hanging terrace that was created above a metro line. But what is even more important is that it turned a green piece of land that was completely unused into a lively, new, green and open space at the heart of one of Vienna's densest boroughs. Which leads me to the second pillar of Vienna's strategy, transforming historical neighborhoods. Now, there is a quote by Jane Jacobs that has been extremely influential to my thinking. She once said, "The outside of the buildings is the inside of the city." And yes, indeed, public space is where the city actually is. It is where it materializes. It is what is decisive about the feel of a city. I mean, a city is much more than just an array of buildings. It is actually what happens in between. And how we go about designing public space is decisive about the way we feel about our cities, about the quality of life that we have in our cities, and about the way we spend everyday life. Creating wonderful green and open spaces in our cities is, though, directly interrelated to the way we organize mobility within our cities. Green mobility is the backbone of livability, most notably public transport. Vienna disposes of one of the world's densest public transport networks for a city this size, meaning that you never have to walk longer than 3 minutes until you reach the next station. And most of the times, at least, you never have to wait for longer than 3 to 5 minutes until the next tramway or metro line arrives. Vienna's public transport network is also one of the most affordable worldwide. The annual public transport ticket costs only €365, which means that for €1 per day you can ride anywhere you want to, as often as you want to in Vienna, resulting in almost 900,000 annual tickets having been sold up to now, and of course a city that has benefited from a remarkable decrease in private car use. But I would say Vienna is indeed a city made for walking. 56% of all daily trips include walking in Vienna, and walkability stands at the heart of our philosophy of combining mobility with urban design. Remember the quote by Jane Jacobs, "The outside of the buildings is the inside of the city." Well, this leads us inevitably to rethinking the street. Especially in historical urban quarters in the already built city, the street is where we have to start when redesigning public space. This is why we have decided in Vienna to make walking an exciting experience by creating a walkability master plan, a network of pedestrian boulevards offering optimum quality that will encourage you to go for long walks. That is seating, shading along the way, drinkable water along the way, pedestrian-friendly traffic lights, broad sidewalks or shared spaces, pedestrian zones, and places for community life. The network of pedestrian boulevards connects social institutions, cultural institutions, places of everyday life, squares, open and green spaces with each other, offering maximum quality and encouraging the Viennese and actually every visitor of Vienna to take long walks throughout the city. One of Vienna's most prominent examples of urban transformation is the transformation of Maria-Hilfer-Straße, Central Europe's longest shopping street, into a pedestrian zone. This is what it looked like back in 2010, congested, 12,000 cars approximately every day, and more than 70,000 pedestrians relying upon overcrowded sidewalks. And this is what it looks like today. A pedestrian zone plus 2 sections of shared space, beautifully designed, offering space for walking, shopping, and enjoying outdoor life. Of course, wonderful green and open spaces are designed together. In the case of Maria-Hilfer-Straße, the people of Vienna and everybody living in the nearby vicinity had the opportunity to make their contributions on site for several weeks. The new Maria-Hilfer-Straße was just the beginning, soon to be followed by numerous transformation projects throughout the entire city. At the time being, Vienna is working at the implementation of the network of boulevards for pedestrians. connecting several boroughs with each other and creating long walks throughout the entire city. But even more important, transforming public space along the way. A good way to assess the qualities of public space is to observe people's pace. Great public spaces is where people slow down and enjoy, as we have observed in Vienna. This resulted in a program of assessing and upgrading public space, turning transitory spaces into beloved places. One of the most prominent examples is the Danube Canal, right at the heart of the city, which has been almost non-accessible for decades and was transformed into one of the most beautiful recreational areas for all generations, where you can walk and spend time for hours and hours. One of the most recent examples is the transformation of Rotenturmstraße, a very central Viennese street, which was actually characterized by congestion throughout the decades and has been recently transformed into shared space, adding green everywhere and anywhere possible. And an upcoming project is the transformation of Schwedenplatz, based on citizens' contributions, resulting in a new design that put usability and additional greening at its heart. Yet Vienna's most recent example is the creation of 20 cool streets, 16 temporary and 4 permanent, offering relief from summer heat. Cool streets are characterized by traffic calming, offering space for outdoor uses, removing concrete wherever possible and replacing it with green, adding trees and all kinds of planting, vertical greening, and what is more important, adding water elements wherever possible. Yet, the Vienna story could never be complete without the Viennese. When transforming a city, we always rely on the contributions of the citizens themselves. So this is how it all started. Actually, an idea that was developed spontaneously by people living in one of Vienna's densest and most grey streets, who actually created a parklet in the space of 2 parking cars that transformed the face of the neighborhood. It was such a success that the following year, streets in the nearby vicinity also started introducing greening elements. So this is actually yet again an initiative that was developed by the citizens that started vertical greening at the street and addressed the city of Vienna, asking to turn the street into shared space so as to give them more space for green elements, as the sidewalks were extremely narrow, offering no space for pots and outdoor seating. This let us develop the idea of introducing a community grants scheme that would result in similar ideas all over the city. And I believe that this has been the biggest success in Vienna in the past 5 years. Several hundreds of community ideas have been realized throughout the entire city. Most of the times it's different types of parklets. You can see an example here. But the sweetest of all projects that has been implemented was a temporary garden at the premises of an abandoned industrial area that actually turned everything into a farm for one summer, bringing together children from a nearby kindergarten with people from a nearby elderly home, before ending with a wonderful Thanksgiving party to make room for the creation of a new urban quarter that stands there in the meantime, offering subsidized housing for the Viennese. So to sum it up, these are the basic ingredients of the Viennese way to create one of the world's most livable cities. It's about affordability. It's about a city that's good for children. It's about putting emphasis on the qualities of public spaces. It's about ownership of critical infrastructures. It's about governance, innovation, and collaboration. It's about greening and keeping in mind that public space needs to allow for different uses by different communities and generations. It's about co-creation and involving the people, but also about encouraging bottom-up action. And it's about urban transformation by using new urban quarters as an opportunity for additional green, but also by caring and repairing, upgrading public space, and transforming the already built city. Did I manage to make you curious to find out more? Well then, come visit and see for yourselves. Urban recovery after the pandemic will pretty much rely on the transformation and the greening of public space to create cities that we love and new opportunities for us all. Thank you.